to bring up two more things.
Sure.
Some of the things that I've read and heard over the years, and I, respond to them. One thing I've heard is that you're bland. Have you ever heard this before?
Sure.
I mean, what would you say to somebody who was that somebody would actually have the guts to say that to your face? What would you say to them?
I'd say I could see it at a point in my career. I think that, and also, bland in pro wrestling is probably a pretty charismatic person walking the streets, but we're not walking the streets. When you have personalities that are as big and bold and colorful and over the top as Andrew Palace. Andrew Palace is, if you put my initial entrance to the crowd versus Andrew Palace's, Palace dwarfs me with energy and intensity. But sometimes I don't necessarily think that, especially if you are going to take a more villainous approach, that being a counter, that being the other side of the coin, I think that sometimes if all you're looking for is the surface level, perhaps the criticism is apt. But I think if you see how the personalities bounce off of each other, and that's one of the things I've always felt very good about is that I felt I've always been a very good antagonist. I think I've always been a good obstacle for someone to overcome, because I have been so different to a lot of the people who I've wrestled, whether it was an Andrew Palace or Gory or Jack Pollock. I felt that the contrast has helped. And if my particular brand of vodka is not someone's flavor, bland. If you say so.
Okay. So. The other thing I've heard, I've been criticized for this, and I've also been criticized recently in a phone conversation by an unnamed backyarder.
Okay.
That I was critical of them for not being in good enough shape, and maybe I've not been critical enough of you for not being in good enough shape. What are your thoughts on somebody who would say, "Hey, Chris, you're not in good enough shape"?
Well, I feel like it's a fair criticism. It is a cosmetic business, and when you are in a situation where you have individuals like the Titan Dennis Jackson, and for a little bit more of a dated reference for people who know, a Calvin McGrath. I mean, in this business, the body types are, some of especially the people who are known for being physiques, borders on superhuman. Could I be in better shape? Yes. And it's something I've struggled with at various points in my career. Some points I felt very comfortable with the physique that I brought. Other times I felt like, I took a look at my Ring of Honor match, and while I felt I was in good shape, I don't know that the camera was as generous to me as my mirror was. So I think it's fair, but I also feel that anybody who, what about, what's it? No one's perfect. And, if you can take the criticisms that are valid and they motivate you to improve, there's nothing wrong with that. If you take criticism, it's just a bunch of haters, and you can't look in the mirror and go, I might have a point,
Okay. So my last interview with G. Raver,
Okay.
I didn't do word association.
Okay.
And he seemed disappointed in it. So
Okay.
we're going to do some word association.
Sure.
You can say one word, you can say 50 words, whatever comes into your mind.
Okay.
Just try to give us the best answer you feel comfortable giving.
Okay.
First one right off the bat, Justin Plummer.
Boss. So,
One word.
one word.
Okay.
He's the boss.
Jim Miller.
Longevity.
Norm Connors. Can be as many words as you want. One or 100.
Good man. I'll go with good man. I haven't been around Norm as much as some of the other personalities and figures in Pittsburgh wrestling history. My interactions with him have been brief, but they've always been very pleasant. So,
Delirious.
genius. Very smart guy.
Brutal Bob.
Uncle Bob. Another guy so smart. So smart. And somebody who has gotten out of the wrestling bubble to understand that wrestling is more than wrestling.
Okay. Brandon K.
First class.
Okay.
In every sense of the word.
Joe Rogers. Oh, he's measuring his words on this one.
Subway shop.
Okay. Quinn Magnum.
I do not envy his job. He is a guy, and I'll say more about Quinn. Quinn took a chance on me when nobody else did. And if there is no Quinn Magnum, I don't think Chris Lerusso gets the opportunities that he does. And I actually like your input on this, and this is slightly off topic, but I was talking with somebody recently, and we were saying booking is an easy job for about 6 months. And after that, it becomes one of the most difficult things in the world to keep things fresh and creative and different and dynamic. And Quinn has now been a creative presence for, it's got to be over 10 years, right?
It's a long time.
It's a long time. And to continue to do that, man, that is, I am very, very, very impressed.
Well, booking's the worst job in the world. The reasons are, if the crowds are up and big, it's because of the boys.
Yes.
If the crowds are down, it's because
of the booker.
So there's no,
Would you agree?
It's a thankless job.
Would you agree with that assessment that it's an easy job for 6 months?
If you have the right talent. If you don't have the right talent,
It's always a hard job.
it's always a hard job. So, of anything I've ever done, it's been my most favorite thing that I've ever done is booking shows. So, I don't know. I think it's different for everybody. I think I had a pretty good run in Altoona for 7 years. The last 6 months maybe weren't as good, but I had a good 7-year run. So I think it's a little different for everybody. So, about 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
you wrestled Colin Delaney at Ring of Honor. Tell us about that experience.
When I went into, I was contacted by Ring of Honor management, and they let me know that I would have an opportunity to wrestle in Pittsburgh. I knew I was wrestling in Pittsburgh, and they'd give me some time. That was the extent of what I knew. And I was excited, and I had heard through people who were on the outer orbits, some of their trainees, some wrestlers in Ring of Honor who I knew, but they thought it was going to be one of the Ring of Honor dojo trainees. And I went, okay. And I was sort of mentally preparing myself for somebody who was probably very athletic, but maybe a little green. So that was kind of where my mind went. And then when I got there that day, I saw Colin before I knew I was wrestling him. And Colin and I have gotten to be a little better acquainted in recent weeks. So went over, caught up a little bit. He just opened a new business up in New York, and comic books, coffee, and cereal. Maybe if it makes $1 million, he's a genius. So we caught up a little bit, and then I went over and I was talking to the agents, and they said you've got Colin tonight, and you're going on first. So now my mindset has to change. I'm going in there with somebody who has a ton of experience, and we're batting lead off. So we will be the first wrestling that crowd sees tonight. And some people will go, oh, it was the dark match, or no, it is the first pro wrestling those people will see that night. You have to make a good impression. If you go out there and it can be a bad start to the whole evening. So there's some additional pressure with that.
I've been preaching that a lot lately.
Yeah. We went out there, and once we started, and I won't pull the curtain back too much, but we both knew what we wanted to do near the end. It was something that we had worked on a little bit, and we both knew, like, okay. And from there, we were pretty much on the same page, and I think it took 6 minutes to kind of put together. We came apart, came back together with maybe 1 or 2 corrections or slight, we were going to do this, but what about this to get into that? And we were mostly on the same page for the entire, and I very much enjoyed it. Looking back on it, there are some things I would nitpick and change, but I think that's true of anything. The general feedback has been fairly positive, and I'm very happy, and I would be very excited to work with him at any point in the future.
So now you're the trainer here at the IWC school. What kind of advice would you give to somebody that wants to get into the wrestling business?
Be honest with what you want out of it. I think that if you come in and you want, and I've used this analogy, if you think it's going to be a WrestleMania main event, a pot of gold, and a Bella Twin at the end of the rainbow, I think 2 people have gotten that gig, and there's no more Bella Twins, and the pot of gold is getting a little, is getting a little light. If you go into it with big goals, if you go in with big goals, but modesty and an open mind, I think you can go as far as you want. I always tell my students, you have a much better chance of making it than I do, because you're all nothing but potential. You can do nothing but get better. From day 1, if you chose to come to day 2 of class, you have to be better. You are nothing but upward potential. You don't have any bad habits. You don't have any vices. You can only get in better shape. You can only get more charismatic. It can only get better from here. And so I think if you want to get into it, sky's the limit. But also to keep humble, to keep your expectation, to keep tethered to reality while reaching for the stars, and understand that there's going to be a cost. And I don't mean the money out of your pocket. There will be a cost to your time. There will be a cost to your personal life. There will be a physical toll. All these things, if you want to pursue this, you will have to pay into it, and you're going to pay in far more often than you're going to withdraw, especially initially. If you're cool with that, now we can get started. But if you're thinking that it's going to be riches, fame, and this is my way of being a tough guy, or this is my way of being a star, without understanding the toll, I think this is going to be a very difficult road for you.
You talk about the cost. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like the cost that it's taken on you, has it all been worth it for you?
Yes. And I say that confidently. There was a time where I often wondered, that I feel like, has the withdrawal been a WrestleMania main event? No, it has not. But the withdrawal has been so worth it, in not just the experiences I've made, the relationships I've made, the adventures I've been on, the people I've met, and I take some pride in that. I don't think anyone I don't know that I thought I would get this far. I'm sure some people didn't think I would get this far, and that I'm even get the opportunity to work for Ring of Honor, to work in front of William Regal a couple weeks ago at the Evolve tryout, wrestling Davey Richards, wrestling Shane Douglas, the opportunities I've had, the crowds I've worked in front of, the match where Ricky Steamboat was a special guest referee. There have been so many moments that have been like, I think, yes, I feel very confident that it was worth it.
What's next for you?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. I don't think I'm done with Ring of Honor yet. I feel very confident that while that show that I was on was unbelievable, and I think I said this, it was just like home run after home run after home run. I don't think I was so out of place on it. I know what I have to. I see the gap between where I'm at and where they are, and it is a gap, but I don't think it's an insurmountable one. And so I have to be realistic with myself about what I need to change in my training, diet, approach to do that. And I think at the same time, what's next for me is I would like to help people get farther than I ever got. I would like to help, you know, the next generation put their best foot forward. So I think that's what's next.
Okay. Well, we've covered a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
I will add this, and I say this with all sincerity. Without Ken Downs, there is no Chris. Without Ken Downs, there is no Chris Lerusso. And you know, I have learned a lot and I've evolved a lot. But those first matches, the kid in the karate pants, who you were dealing with some pretty top prospects at that point. Your McGraths, Sebastians, some guys who looked like that they were certainly on a rocket ship. And I never felt like you neglected anyone. You gave Lou, sorry Lou, you gave Lou the time of day. You also threatened to stab him once, but you gave people a chance. And without you, Ring of Honor, IWC Super Indie, everything that's happened wouldn't have been possible. So thank you for everything.
Part of it, a very small part of it, but I'm glad I was able to be part of it.
Thank you very much for everything.
No need to thank, because I also train guys like Lou. So,
Lou, I love you.
For as many guys like you,
Yes.
There was also a Lou. So it was fine.
Fair enough.
So I guess that's it. I
Okay.
just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
I hope all of you learned a lot today. I know I did. I can't emphasize this enough. Before it's said and done, guys, girls, please stop having shitty matches. You are ruining my life.